He had no parking, so people were parking on the street, running out and feeding meters and stuff. And so it had lots of challenges, but I spent a couple of weeks there. We identified some opportunities and I gave him the plan and I said, here, go for it. I didn't have to go back. And it was about 12 months later, he called and he said, because the goal was 2 million. I said, I think you can get to 2 million. And he called one day and he said, hey, we just hit 2 million. And I said, awesome. Then he said, now my goal is 3 million.
Of course.
And since that time, now we're pre-COVID, he did hit 3 million. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Awesome. So really appreciate you coming on today, Paul. I'm looking forward to our conversation. For people who have not had the pleasure of meeting you, tell me a little bit about who you are and Victory Lanes.
Okay. First of all, thanks for the invitation. Appreciate it. Honored. I like getting your emails and a lot of the marketing advice and tips. They're helpful. I share them with my staff, and
I'm happy to hear that.
Glad you're doing that. Anyway, so what was the question? Tell us about Victory Lanes.
Yeah, tell us. Yeah, Victory Lanes.
Victory Lanes is in Mooresville, North Carolina. It's a suburb of Charlotte, about 20 miles north of Charlotte. It's known as Race City, USA. So it's the home of NASCAR. A lot of the NASCAR teams are based here. And it's interesting. I grew up in California, in the Bay Area. Knew nothing about NASCAR. And when I came here, it was one of those things where I better learn about NASCAR.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of company parties that were NASCAR teams, and a lot of the drivers would bring their families here and things like that. And I remember staff getting all excited. Hey, do you see who that is? That's Brad Keselowski. I'm like, who? Brad Keselowski. And so it's been interesting. It's really an interesting industry, NASCAR. But Mooresville is more than NASCAR. It's also, there's a lot of high tech in this area, and it's just a booming market. Victory Lanes was built in 2007 by George Pappas. George is a Hall of Fame bowler, one of the greatest bowlers of all time. And he's a Charlotte native and had a bowling center in Charlotte, and then one in Gastonia, just outside of Charlotte. And he built this in 2007. It's a beautiful center, 40 lanes, nice restaurant, and in a great location. And I've known George since the 70s when I bowled on tour. And George is very old school. And when he built this beautiful facility, he wasn't really prepared to shift his paradigm on how he marketed this, and tried to do it as a traditional bowling center, kept it pretty much league based, and it was way too much for that to support, especially in 2007, the direction that league bowling was going. So he called me in 2012 and as a consultant, and that's what I was doing at the time. I was working with centers that were struggling, underperforming, just helping them, and worked with George. And then he asked me to stay permanently, and we worked a deal out where eventually I could buy the place, and did that in 2018 and have had it since. And it was interesting because, of course, we went through COVID and all that.
Yeah, did you get in the reins?
Yeah, but it's a beautiful facility. It's what I call, it's really, for me, it's the perfect bowling center, because I believe there's I don't know if we'll call it a debate or not, but there's the discussion about FEC's traditional league-based bowling centers and so on. And I've always believed that a hybrid of those two things is what's the most important, where you have an entertainment-based bowling center that's also a competitive bowling center, meaning that appeals to competitive bowling, league bowling, tournament bowling. We have leagues Monday through Thursday. We're pretty much completely full. When we're not completely, COVID put a little dent in that, and it left us some open lanes on weekdays, which was nice because we really got tired of turning away people every night of the week. But I think this fall, we're going to probably be full again Monday through Thursday. And that's good and bad. The good is that it's revenue you can count on, and on Monday through Thursday, when we would otherwise be pretty slow. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we shift to a more entertainment-based type of an operation. Lots of parties, lots of walk-in casual business, birthday parties, company parties, fundraisers, and so on. We still host a lot of tournaments, and I was 40 years a member of the PBA. I think it's important to carry on George's legacy. George gave a lot back to the PBA. So we still host several PBA tournaments each year. We hosted the 2019 US Open, and then we have things like state tournaments and all that.
Okay.
So that's where we have a pretty large arcade, full redemption, a very large restaurant with live entertainment. We have live
Very
comedy,
cool.
live comedy. We have bands. We have DJs. We have karaoke. We have a lot going on in the
Wow.
restaurant and lounge, and it's a tap room.
Okay.
And eventually going to be a brewery as well. And then we have a lot of non-bowling business in the form of meetings and group activities that come here just to meet and eat and not necessarily bowl. So that's what we're about.
Yeah, so pretty well diversified then.
Yeah.
I'd like to dive a little bit, because when we spoke, you mentioned it and you just mentioned it now about the consulting side. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, how you got into that, and maybe some of the lessons you learned over time, because that sounds like a very valuable thing for others to see or to hear about.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of older proprietors probably remember me and are familiar with me. But I grew up in the bowling business. I started as a manager in California and worked for BRC for Brunswick in the early 80s. Got a good education from them on the business side of the business, and was always a good marketer, was always good at business development. And then when I left Brunswick, started owning my own center, then I did things non-traditionally. Even though I grew up in the business in the 70s, I always recognized that the business was changing and that our market was changing. And I paid a lot of attention to all the research that was being done about smoking, for instance. I was an advocate of, I felt that smoking was our number one enemy in bowling. And eventually when I had my consulting business, that position actually hurt me, because there were some proprietors who felt like my stance on bowling was contrary to their best interest.
Right. Turns out you're just ahead of your time.
But I was really active in the BPAA, and I would attend Bowl Expo every year, and I would attend all the state conventions, and I was always active in my state BPAA. And what I noticed at BPAA was at Bowl Expo and any meetings, any seminars that we went to, is you'd get a lot of great ideas. And then you would take all these ideas home and you'd be very excited. And the second that you got to the center, you'd be hit with reality, problems of running a bowling center. So all those great ideas would then go in a drawer and get put aside till I'll get to those later. And then we would never implement them. The other thing that I noticed was proprietors had a really hard time executing an idea. The ideas were out there, and our industry is really good about sharing ideas.
Yes.
But the question was, how do you actually do this? So here's this great idea, but how do you actually do it in the center? And one of the things that I did learn at BRC was how to write an action plan, a step-by-step action plan, where you looked at every element of a promotion from start to finish, from employee awareness, just making sure the employees understood it, to who's the target market, to when are you going to do this, how are you going to market it, and so on, right through the follow-up of the promotion. So got very good at writing action plans, and thought what proprietors need is not just the idea, but they also need how to implement it in a step-by-step, simple to use action plan. We now call those turnkey promotions, leading edge. So I believe I was pretty much the first one to do this on a commercialized basis. So I formed a company called Positive Marketing and Positive Marketing Service. And the idea was you would subscribe as a bowling center, you would subscribe to the service, and each month you would get a turnkey package of promotions. You'd get a lead idea, you get a open play idea, you get a tournament idea, and then you get some management tips. And this was early 90s. So pre-computers, pre-desktop publishing. I had an old classic that I used. It was one of the first computers. The idea of cutting and pasting was literal. We were cutting pictures and pasting clip art and things like that.
I love it.
So what I would do is we would send this material to the bowling centers that subscribed, and they would open it up. There would be flyers already designed, and all they had to do is drop in a date, drop in their center information, on. But they literally
Very
had to
nice.
paste it in because
Right.
it wasn't electronic.
Yeah.
And so people love that. And so that started in, I think, 90, I want to say about 92. And we began to get subscribers. We peaked at about 800 subscribers.
Oh, wow.
One time over the years, we had about 1,100
Mhm.
subscribers. And so we had a lot of people using our stuff, and it was a lot of work on our end, but people loved it. And I still talk to centers today who tell me
Mhm.
they've got file drawers full of this stuff, all these promotions.
Yeah.
But that was the idea there. And then that led to BPA asking me to speak at Bowl Expo and speak at the conferences, and the state associations would do the same. So I
Yeah.
began doing a lot of seminars and workshops and things like that. And then that led to the consulting, the on-site consulting. I always worked with underperforming centers or districts. When I was with Brunswick, the centers I got were really underperforming, and the idea was go in and get them turned around. And then the district that I got when I was a district manager was 25th out of 25 districts, and the idea was get that turned around. And I love that because it was relatively easy in a sense that if it's doing that poorly, if we just go in and do the basics correctly, we're gonna see significant improvement.
Yeah.
It always did. And in fact, and so then when I started getting clients, it was, I might spend a week and then I'd be gone for a few months, and then I'd go back and do some follow-up, and then I'd be gone a few months and go back. Varying degrees of how involved I would be with any given client. Some needed a lot of hand-holding, and some were just like, hey, here's your action plan, and this is what I think you need to do, go for it. And some could just do that on their own. I remember a friend, he's now a friend in California, a proprietor, hit a little 24-lane center and an amazing challenge. And it's around 2005. I think he was doing about $1.6 million in this little 24-lane center, but he felt he could do better, but he didn't know how. I wouldn't say that he was underperforming. He was doing great, but he knew he could do better. And that was always the thing too, was when you're so deep in the weeds in running your business, you really don't know what your potential is.
Sure.
So you think you're doing great and you think you're doing as good as you can do, but somebody comes in from the outside with a completely objective perspective and can begin to see where there's opportunity. And so that was something that I got really good at, was identifying opportunity, identifying potential for growth. So here we had this little 24-lane center doing $1.6 million in 2005, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And he had a lot of challenges on top of it. He was in Glendale, California, and he had no parking in the daytime because the county had public domained his parking lot for their employees. From 9 to 5, he had no parking, so people were parking on the street, running out and feeding meters and stuff. And so he had lots of challenges, but I spent a couple of weeks there. We identified some opportunities and I gave him the plan, and I said, here, go for it. I didn't have to go back. And it was about 12 months later, he called and he said, because the goal was 2 million. I said, I think you can get to 2 million. And he called one day and he said, hey, we just hit 2 million. And I said, awesome. Then he said, now my goal is 3 million.
Of course.
And since that time, now we're pre-COVID, he did hit 3 million. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So
that's how it works.
Yeah, and I have clients all over the country, actually all over the world. I have clients in Canada who had the Candlepin, and that was interesting. I had a contract with the Air Force. I worked with Ramo Piketty, who was the founder of DBA Products, that was the Lane Oil and Lane Machine Company, kind of pre-Kegel. And Ramo was the foremost authority on maintenance in a bowling center, on lane maintenance. And he and I got this contract with the Air Force, and we would go into the Air Force bowling centers. I would take care of the front of the house. He would take care of the back of the house. And so we got to go all over the world doing that. That was nice. It was
very cool.
Being able to travel the world.
Yeah. And now, were you doing this like simultaneously with owning the centers and consulting and the subscription, or what does that overlay look like?
Yeah, so the subscription deal, we tried to continue that all the way up to 98 or almost 2000, and run centers. And I would get a client who would say, could you spend more time? We had a center in John Summers Centers in Rockford, Illinois. get 5 centers, and he
Mhm.
wanted me on site. So we tried running the business from there, and it was a challenge, and we weren't really doing justice to it because
Yeah.
it was a little more than I could handle, and then still had a few clients. And then eventually, when we no longer owned a center and wasn't involved on site with any center, I just did the consulting for almost 10 years.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'd have anywhere from 6 to 10 regular clients. And then
I see. Yeah. So then rotating. So then what was your quote unquote like playbook when you came in there? What was like your first order of business, second order? What would you typically do?
the first things I would do would be, before I went in, I would call, or I would have my wife call the center and try to book a party
Okay.
and see just how they handled the call.
Mhm.
And we might also call and ask about bowling lessons. Do you do bowling lessons?
Yeah.
And things like that. So we just see how they would handle
Mystery
dealing with-
shopper kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And then I would go in the day before as a customer and just go in unannounced, and the proprietor would know I was going. And just go in and bowl and eat and just kind of listen to the conversation among the employees and that kind of thing, and start to get some ideas. And then once I was officially there and they knew who I was, it was a lot of observation. It was a lot of one-on-one interviews with staff. It was exploring the market, visiting the Chamber of Commerce, or just driving around the area, depending on every situation, a little bit different. If there was an opportunity to work with schools, you might try to meet with the superintendent of the schools, and
Yeah.
just spend time just trying to get to know the center, know the market. Previous to going in, I would have studied financials and tried to see if there were any really obvious financial issues,
Okay.
cost controls, or things like that. And sometimes you ran into that. Sometimes you ran into ways that were clearly stealing, and
Yeah.
had to break that news to the proprietor, who might already have known it or suspected it, but you start to identify it. But mostly it was trying to focus on growing the business, on building the business. But you had to figure out, where are the priorities. Usually when I would go in to any center like that, they were underperforming in terms of revenue, in terms of profit. So that would be the first thing they'd want me to focus on. And oftentimes they had issues like maintenance. Pin setter maintenance was poor, let's say, a lot of breakdowns, or cleanliness, or customer service, or things like that. So sometimes you have to get your house in order before you start inviting
Right.
people into
Yeah.
to place. Because I'd have to explain, look, the last thing we want to do right now is bring new people into this place and then have them never come back. And most of this was pre-social media too, so we didn't have to worry about the bad social media reviews, but we still had to worry about bad word of mouth.
Yeah. Especially a new customer, if that's their first impression, you want it to be a
Yes.
good one.
Yeah, so we would focus on getting our house in order first, focus on cleanliness, focus on customer service, maybe the appearance of the staff, the appearance in general of the center. And then if there was maintenance issues, try to get those under control. And then begin to look at, where do we have opportunities? So what's our inventory look like? When do we have lanes available? And you look at weeknights and you look at weekends, and what are we doing on those times? And then you look for the low hanging fruit. So we're doing 2 birthday parties a week. Maybe we could be doing 6 or 8 or 10 if we structured it differently, or
Right.
we ran them differently, or we offered something different. Or we have opportunities for leagues, because we're not full every night on the weeknights. And so plug in have a ball league or like that, to try to get new people. Then you begin to look at where are the marketing opportunities in town, get involved with the schools, get involved with the Chamber of Commerce, begin to let people know. I think that still exists today, but there was always this sort of mentality that we've been here for 30 years. Everybody knows we're here. Everybody knows where we are.
Yeah.
We don't need to do any marketing. We don't need to do any
I hear it
advertising.
all the time.
Yeah, but no, people are transient, and there's 20% of the population is changing pretty much every year. So there are people who have no clue that you're there, that
Right.
they don't know you're there, and they don't know what you have to offer. And if you're not out and actively in the community, letting them know, they're not ever going to come to your place, no matter how long you've been there.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I used to think that too, going pretty far back, but we bought a center in Idaho Falls, Idaho. It was 35 years old when we bought it. And the guy that built it was the one we bought it from. So he'd been there 35 years and he was very well known in the community. And my first Chamber of Commerce meeting, I'm introducing myself and people are like, oh, where are you from? I'm from Bolero Lanes, named Bolero before Bolero, and from Bolero Lanes. And they're like, where is that? Oh, this is Idaho Falls, Idaho. It's 40,000 people. It's like, how do you not know where Bolero Lanes is? I said, oh, it's on First Street. I said, how long have you been in Idaho Falls? And they'd be like, oh, 10 years.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So that's usually one of the first things that when we're working with a client, we know it's working, is when they start to have people who come in and say, oh, I've lived here for 10 years. I didn't know you guys were here, or I haven't been here in 10 years kind of thing. And you guys have changed a bunch. So I always give the example that because all the people that the proprietor knows, they know them, they're friends, they know about it, but outside of that circle, it's unknown, but you don't talk to those people. So it's insular.
It's really amazing. And we see it here at Victory Lanes because this area is growing like crazy. Booming. I've been here 10 years now, and there are now like 3 more exits off the interstate that didn't exist when I came here 10 years ago.
Wow.
There's housing that's beyond belief. Just literally across the street from us, there's 350 apartment units just went up in the last year. There's 250 more that are going to go right behind us. You can't drive anywhere without seeing new housing. Now, there is no way that any of those people know where we are. Of course. And a lot of bowling centers are not super visible. They're not on a really high traffic location. We're an example of that. We're not that easy to see, not that easy to find when you're just driving by. So
the amount of space required for the price, it's difficult to be on the busy road.
Yeah, you can't get that prime real estate.
Exactly. So then what are some of the things that you guys do to get in front of new people and let people know you're out there?
The first thing I usually do in any going into marks, get involved in the chamber. And oftentimes the proprietor's really not. And usually the excuse is, I don't have time. For that. Chamber doesn't really involve that much time. And if necessary, you can delegate that to somebody who's good with people.
Right. Hour or two a month.
You just need to have a presence at their events and their meetings and things like that. And then there's Chamber does a lot of things like business fairs, business expos, job expos, health expos, outdoor events, things like that. Just always have a presence at those things, because not only does it get you in front of people, get you in front of usually influential people in the community, and they talk and they share, they support the organizations that are supporting them. Schools are super important, and I know that a lot of proprietors talk about how difficult it is to get into schools because we're a commercial venture. I've never ever found that to be insurmountable in any market. Was John Summer, again, his 5 centers said they could not get into schools with we developed the Say No to Drugs, Say Yes to Bowling program. This was before the Kids Bowl Free program. Which Kids Bowl Free was an offshoot of our program. And it was a free game a day program. And you go into this in the summertime, and you go into the schools in April and May, distribute the cards and make contact. And then all summer long, the kids get 1 free game of bowling. You have to physically go in the schools to make that work. And if the schools won't let you in, then that's a problem. But there's always a way. So in our case, one of the reasons I called it Say No to Drugs, Say Yes to Bowling, and we tied in with the DARE program, and was because then we could go to the DARE officers in town and say, hey, we've got this program and it's a great program to keep kids busy in the summertime. Can you help us get into schools? And of course they can. And so they'll always be like, yeah, when do you want to go? And when in Rockford, that was the case. And the DARE officer said, when do you want to go? And I said, anytime we go. And he literally would take me into the school, introduce me to the principal, and say, Paul's got a program for the summer. How many cards do you need? And then that would be that. And
I like it. It's genius.
So other times you just have to be bold. There were some times when maybe there's not a DARE program in the area, and we would just go into the schools, and you'd get this receptionist sometimes that would say, did you get permission from the superintendent? And I'd be like, oh, we do this. Yeah, we do this every year. And okay. And then we'd leave and then you mentioned free bowling right away, because you start to get the resistance. And it's free bowling all summer long. And we have cards for the staff. And the second you say you have cards for the staff, and okay.
All of a sudden, exactly. Yeah, I like that. That's a great idea because yeah, it can be sometimes difficult to get in the schools, but once you're in, it's a great spot because you get the birthday parties, the kids in the summer. It brings a lot with it.
It's huge. Yeah, we've since COVID now it's a little bit slower. We're probably averaging about 250 kids a day
Hmm.
come in, but we've had centers. We had a center in Port Arthur, Texas, where there was like nothing to do there in that town. So this program was huge because it gave kids something to do, and we were averaging 500 to 600 kids a day
Oh,
in
wow.
summertime every
Wow.
day of the week.
Yeah, it's
It
massive.
was insane. I mean, they would be
Yeah.
lined up. This is a 40-lane center, and they would be lined up around the building waiting to get in.
Wow. Yeah. And that's all the free bowling program then?
Yeah, that's one.
Hmm.
There's one free game a day. It includes shoes. And I remember the first time we did it here at Victory Lanes. George Pappas is very cheap. And there's no other way to put that. And he wouldn't even be offended if I said that because he is. He's very frugal, and he doesn't like giving anything away. So the first time we did the Say No program was in 2013, and I got the cards out, distributed about 50, 60,000 cards in the community. And it was a Friday in May, and it was a normal Friday in May. We had no business going on. Basically, it was totally dead. Kids were still in school, and got up around noon to go do some errands. And as I walked out into the lobby area, people were coming through the front doors, and a lot of kids and parents. And I thought, did we book a field trip or something that I forgot about? What are all these kids doing here? And they just kept coming. And at what turned out was, since it was the first year we had done the program, the schools didn't know that they should have distributed the cards when I first dropped them off in
Okay.
April.
Yeah.
So they held on to them till the last day of school. And this was the last day of school. It was like whatever it was, May 11th or something. And so at noon, it was a half day. So they got out of school, they got their cards. And the first thing they wanted to do when the parents picked them up was, look I got this free bowling, let's go bowling.
Yeah.
And so they just poured in, and they just kept coming. Within minutes, we went from empty to on a waiting list, and with 40 lanes. And George came out and he's freaking out. He's, oh my God, what are all these people doing here? And I said, what's the Say No program? And he says, oh my God, they're all bowling for free. And I said, George, I said, we know historically that each kid that walks through the door with a card will spend $5 while they're here. It's going to happen. They're going to get an average of $5, whether it's extra bowling, food and beverage, arcade, whatever. We're getting $5 a kid. And he said, oh my God, I hope you're right. And I said, how many people do you think are here right now? And he says, oh, there's got to be over 200. And I said, okay. I said, that's $1,000. And then when the day was done, we looked at the numbers, and we had done 630 kids, 630 free games.
Oh, wow.
630 kids. And then we looked at the revenue for that day compared to the revenue the same day, the same Friday, the prior year. Prior year, the total revenue for the whole day and night was about $3,000. This year, with the thing, it was over 7,000.
Wow. Yeah.
And it was all because of 630 kids walk through the door and spend $5. Yeah, so it's just amazing. And then the residual of all that is, of course, is like you said, birthday parties, leagues. We do pick up. A lot of proprietors get frustrated because with this program and the Kids Bowl Free program and stuff, you don't necessarily develop a lot of league bowlers, but you do develop some. And we got to realize that league bowling is a different animal, and it's a commitment.
It is.
And so even if we pick up 10 or 15 new league bowlers out of the program, that's 10 or 15 bowlers we didn't have before.
Exactly. Yeah. You mentioned about the conversation, the argument between the two, but it's really just two different types of demographics or customers. The casual open bowler with the birthday parties and the league bowler, just two different ones that happen to go to the same venue and coexist.
Exactly. And so you can't be just one thing. You can't be all things to all people, but you also can't just be one thing and survive. I don't think, even as an FEC. Now, the huge FECs with that's all they are.
Yeah.
But they're not bowling centers. They have bowling lanes. Dave and Buster's has bowling lanes, but they're not a bowling center. They're an FEC. But we just look at our demographic, we look at our target market, we look at our available times and our inventory. And if we've got people that want to bowl leagues and they're willing to do it on a Monday night at 7 o'clock, then great, because nobody else wants
Right.
to bowl Monday night at 7 o'clock.
Exactly. Yeah. That's perfect. So we talked a little bit about the past and the history of you and your centers, your consulting. I'm wondering, we talked about some of the stuff that has worked in the past, but what about today? I'd love to touch on what's working for you today at Victory Lanes, or maybe some of the other centers that you're still in touch with. What do you see is really crushing it today?
Yeah, it's a whole new world since COVID, and it was always, bowling has always been changing. It's ever changing because society is ever changing, market's always changing, and we have to adapt. And over the years and years ago, I pointed out, I thought bowling proprietors were one of those people or groups who were really slow to adapt, really slow to change, and very set in their ways. And even though the world around us was changing and people were expecting and demanding something different than what we were offering, we continued to shove it down their throat. I think we've begun to recognize that you can't survive that way. And so you do have to pay attention to what's going on in the marketplace. You have to pay attention to what other entertainment venues are doing. I've always looked at what's the restaurant industry doing, what's club industry doing, what are hotels doing, and then of course, true entertainment, amusement parks. What you couldn't do better than to model yourself after Disney years ago in terms of customer service and
absolutely
and things like that. So look at who's doing things the best. Look at, for a long time, Southwest Airlines or Marriott or any of these companies, and just copy what they do. And as far as what's working now, boy, you just don't know. The one good thing and the kind of strange thing, so there was a time, there's been a few times over the years, because I started, my first job was in a bowling center in 69 or so, 1969, and as a teenager. And back then, bowling centers were so full. There was a proprietor in Concord, California, had a 44-lane center. They were full from the time they opened the doors at 9 o'clock until midnight.
Yeah.
With leagues.
Yeah. Some were 24 hours a day.
Yeah. And it was just unbelievable. And the extent of his marketing was unlocking the doors.
Yeah.
He just unlocked the doors.
Just open and they come. Yep.
And obviously that changed. And we're experiencing right now, since COVID, everybody's experiencing a lot more business. Our numbers are beating 2019 numbers, and that's without any huge price increases or anything. Because people just wanted to get out and do things again.
Yep.
So we're seeing that kind of across the board. And it's not so much that we can just unlock the doors. We still have to work a little bit at it. But the 2-hour waiting list on a Friday night or a Saturday night, it's common, it's there, it's all the time. We sometimes go on a waiting list the second we open the door on the weekend, and we don't go off until 10 o'clock at night. And it's just because people want to do that. Now, that's not going to last forever. So we have to be prepared for that, enjoy it last. And in terms of marketing right now, we're not doing a whole lot to get new business deliberately, because we are so busy and we don't have the staff to take care of everybody the way we should. So I don't want people to get frustrated by coming in, not being able to get a lane or not being able to get serviced properly. And that's especially true in our case on the restaurant side. We have a whole new menu that we designed a year ago that we can't even roll out because we don't have people that could execute it. We don't have cooks that could actually deliver on that menu. We've kept what we had. And people ask all the time, because we did a remodel in the restaurant and a rebranding, when are you going to really go live with this? And when we have staff, and I don't know when that will be. Someday, it'll be someday, but I'm not sure when. I think right now, the things that we are doing are the things that we've done prior. We're concentrating on leagues Monday through Thursday. We're concentrating on birthday parties and company parties. The company parties we lost because of COVID. Company parties were gone. Group events were gone. They're starting to come back now. We're in a market, Lowe's company, hardware stuff. Their world headquarters are here, and so thousands of employees. And we used to do about 250 Lowe's company parties a year.
Wow.
Everywhere from 10 employees in a small little team to
you said 250.
About 250 parties.
Wow, that's almost one a day.
Yeah, of various sizes. And they would range from, like I said, 10 people to 500 people, depending on the nature of the event. And it would range from just your basic whatever team to the executives. And it was, but after, when COVID hit, we didn't have a Lowe's party until, well, just a few months ago. It was our first Lowe's party. And it was a small group. And now we've had 3 or 4, and now we're starting to get inquiries for more. We're seeing people are booking Christmas parties already. And so that's all a great sign. I think we do have to market that, and probably every bowling center should market that.
Yep, it's one of the first things we do.
That we are a venue for corporate events. So that's important. And so that's going to cause us to get out and be more active in the chamber again. Not that we haven't been, but we've been a little passive about that. And we're going to get more involved and do actually some targeted marketing to businesses again. And then I think we could do a lot better on our end with birthday parties. I think we do really good birthday parties, but I think we could do better birthday parties. And I think people expect better these days. So that's something we're looking at upgrading and trying to really give them that wow factor. And
yeah, the great thing about the parties is that people who might not normally come in get invited to the party just because they're friends. And then you get exposure with new people, especially like the corporate events or the birthday parties. A kid or a parent who might not come in gets dragged in or invited in. And then who knows, they come back the next week because they have a good time, or their kid has a birthday the following month. And
so you have 10 little ambassadors that, or the mommy, I want my birthday party here.
Exactly.
Or can we come back? And it's very important if a center's not including bounce back coupons with every party they do, make sure you do bounce back coupons, because you want to give the kids some reason. We do it with our corporate parties where we give them bounce back coupons so they can bring their families back.
Very
and
smart.
with the birthday parties, same thing, give them coupons so that they'll come back again, give them a reason to come back because they want to. And then recognize that there's a lot of residual that comes from the parties, like I said, that because they'll come back. We've picked up company parties as a result of a birthday party because one of the moms happened to be somebody, a manager at a business or an executive at a business, and loved the birthday party so much that she said, this would be a great place for a team building event, a company party. And so we need to try to make sure that our in-house marketing, our 4 walls marketing, that we have plenty of literature, signage, things like that, that would let somebody know, hey, this is a place you could have company party.
Yeah, and sometimes I find that just having like a package or an option or like a catering menu, all that spelled out, just helps people see, oh, this is like something that people do all the time.
Yeah, very important. And I think we can take lessons from places like Dave & Buster's and stuff too, how they display their corporate event type material, their promotional material and stuff like that, and other businesses. I love going to things like Bowl Expo and the state association meetings that meet in hotels, and then when they do the banquets and such, watch how they're presenting the buffets and how they're doing, how they're promoting their things and stuff too. Always taking pictures and sending it back to staff saying, hey, we should do this and we should do this.
Yeah, no, that's really smart. I didn't even think of that. That's a great idea, because that's the highest stakes, right? The convention centers, they get all the corporate events. That's smart. So you got obviously the wave of bowling, the resurgence, you got the events. Is there anything else you guys are seeing a good amount of success with?
In our case, and we're a little unique, I think, in this regard, is because we have a large restaurant lounge where we can do events, we are doing more and more of that. And we started live comedy weekly and on a Wednesday night that would have otherwise been completely empty. So we went from 0 business in the lounge to maybe 100 people or so. And that's nice. And so we got the league still bowling, and then you got something going on at the restaurant. And again, it's looking at inventory. Where do we have holes to fill? One of the seminars that I always did was called Filling Holes, which is where you're looking for those places where you could actually put something in. We've got a meeting room that can seat about 60 people comfortably. So people are always looking for meeting space. I am active in the Rotary Club, in the Lions Club, and the Exchange Club, which are all service organizations. Very important to be involved in those because they give back to the community, but also generally there's a lot of people in those organizations that are influential as well. And they meet at our place. So do a dinner, they do a lunch, or they do a breakfast. And so it's just additional revenue for us, non-bowling revenue, that they're in a room. And then we do live entertainment is tricky. It's expensive and it's tricky to book and things like that. So we got lucky and found a DJ who does karaoke and dance type music and stuff. And he's developed a pretty good following and relatively inexpensive. It's not like a band.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's one person.
yeah. And then we do some special things like we have the Lake Norman Big Band, which is a 20-piece orchestra.
Oh, wow.
And they do a show here once a month, the third Monday of every month. I try to get them to do it more frequently, but it's a bunch of retired guys that are musicians, really good musicians. And they're like, we can't manage 2 times a month. They rehearse. I think they rehearse weekly and then they play. But we get about 100, 150 people for that. And we do a dinner and there's dancing. And
do you tickets or they just show up or?
No, yeah, it's all reservations. Okay. We have limited space and we have a big room. Comfortably, we can accommodate 120 or so. So every table is reserved. And so people buy their tickets online or they call or they come in. Yeah. And then we actually reserve. We actually have season ticket holders who they pay for a whole year in advance and get a little discount. And then they have their set table every month at the same table. So it's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you said you do a little comedy too. Talk about that because I've seen people try that and it could be difficult to screen good acts. What was your solution for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So pre-COVID, we tried it and we hooked up with a company who did it. She was a really nice person, but she wasn't really getting the best talent. And so it was real hit or miss. One week we'd have 20 people and the next week we'd have 60, but mostly it was miss. And then we stopped, of course, during COVID. And then after COVID, this was through I'm involved in the Visitors and Convention Bureau as well. I'm on the board for the Morrisville Visitor and Convention Bureau. And so one of the board members is a restaurant owner in town who also is an owner of the Comedy Zone. And so we started talking about wanting to do comedy and he thought we'd be a good venue. And I said, yeah, it's just getting good talent that we can count on because they also have to be family appropriate.
Yep.
We position ourselves as always being family appropriate. And so even stand-up comedy really can't cross that line.
Yep.
That could be a challenge. And so he said, hey, look, we'll partner with you. We'll book the talent. You promote the Comedy Zone, helps us promote the brand. And because they have a venue in downtown Charlotte and then also all over the country. And so we're working with them. We hooked up with them and they book the talent and they screen it for us. And
yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, it makes it really easy for us. And then we're just really kind of
the venue. Yeah. And you do tickets for that as well?
Yes. Yeah. They buy tickets online. Yeah. We set up online. My son does the website and all the online stuff. And we sell tickets to every event that we do, whether it's a comedy, whether it's big band, whether it's a pro-am. We're hosting a pro-am this Labor Day weekend. You can enter online, just sign up online, pay your entry online, and it's really nice. All that stuff can be done online. And to that point too, technology allows us to do a lot of things that we didn't necessarily do before. Our league bowlers, we don't use envelopes. We don't use the old-fashioned envelopes, no team envelopes. Our league bowlers either pay on their phone through an app. They just go online and they pay, or they walk up to the front counter and they pay with a credit card and they can prepay the entire season. We encourage them to do that. Probably about 25% pay the whole season.
That's great.
Give them a 10% discount.
Yeah.
They love that. And
I'm sure you do too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so nice. It's so nice. Once they've paid, we don't have to worry about that at all.
And it's a nice cash infusion at a time of year that's not always as busy.
Yeah, it does give you a lot of cash up front. And then you just got to manage that part of it.
Sure.
Carefully. So we're eventually, and this is one of those things, one of the first proprietors to go smoke free before states started imposing smoking bans. But I think we're going to be one of the first proprietors that says, when you sign up for a league, you're going to give us a credit card and you're going to be charged weekly for that, or you're going to prepay the whole season. There's going to be no payments weekly. You're not going to come up to the counter and pay. You're certainly not putting money in.
Yeah, auto pay.
Yeah, and it's just, and you're paying. You start thinking about you can't subscribe to Netflix without a credit card. You can't tell Netflix, I'll pay next week. And with league bowlers, that's what you get. You get we're now at the
When
end
you're
of the
chasing
summer.
money.
Yeah, we're at the end of the summer session right now. We have this week and next week, and the summer session's over. So now we're looking hard at who's behind in their payments. And we've allowed it to happen. If somebody's
Right.
behind, we've allowed it because they're supposed to be paying at the front counter. And
Exactly.
if they don't, we're supposed to go chase them. But it's a pain in the butt to go chase them. And then they
Of
have all
course.
their excuses and
Mhm.
all that.
And
So
they
now
already
we're
bowled, but you
yeah,
lost your leverage.
they've bowled, yeah.
Yeah.
And you can't tell them with 1 week to go, well, if you don't pay, you're not going to get the bowl, and be like, oh, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we
yeah.
implemented that with us for our clients. Not that we had people who weren't paying, but just because as we grew to more clients, trying to the work and collecting the money every month, it ends up to be a lot of time. So that's one of the best things that we ever did. Is just say that you put a credit card on file, it charges every month on whatever date you pick, and then neither of us has to worry about it again.
Yeah. So you're doing that.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, great. And you do it across the board 100%?
Yep. Exactly. Yep.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
It's easier with you have some people who've done it a certain way for a while. If there aren't a problem, let them go. But for everyone who's new coming in, you just say, this is how we do it. And no one's had a problem with it.
And because it's the way of the world,
Mhm.
it's that you do that with everything. And
Yeah, they're used to it.
somehow bowlers think I try to tell the staff because the staff gets all upset because the bowler gives them a hard time. And I said, look, what other business can you go in, get product or service and not pay for it? Say, I'll catch up next week.
Exactly. Yeah, nowhere.
So,
Right. Yeah, try that with the bar tab.
yeah, yeah.
Good luck. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad you're doing that, and that'll help me.
Yeah, highly encourage you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
highly
take that lead.
encourage.
I think what we'll probably do, we have a lot of fall session leagues that do 15 weeks, and then they break for Christmas, and then they start up again with a winter session that goes 15 weeks or
Yeah.
whatever.
The trick
So-
is ample notice. That seems to make it the big difference. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
not today, but starting whenever you're going to do it, we're
Yeah.
switching over to this. Makes it easier for you, easier for me, and then plenty of notice. They know it's coming. You tell them with every week or whatever leading up to it, and then it's no surprise.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, so that's what I was thinking was when we do our organizational meetings this fall, we'll announce, hey, come January, when the league does the winter session, this is how it's going to work.
Yeah.
And then they'll have the whole session to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'll be following up with you on that. I'm curious to hear how it goes. I think it'll go well, but yeah, I'll be touching base. So we're coming up on the top of the hour. We could talk. I could talk to you all day. I'm sure maybe we'll have to do another one down the road. But before we go, I just wanted to get where you see bowling going in the future, the next 3 years or so, and then your biggest challenge and your number one piece of advice. So we can go through those really quick and then call it for the day.
Okay. All right. Well, I wasn't prepared for those questions, but I used to be, I think, pretty good at predicting where bowling was going. I don't know that there's any possible way to do that these days.
Yeah.
I think still it's the basics. It comes down to the basics. And if you are a center that has leagues, take care of your leagues, make league bowling fun. It can get boring, it can get monotonous, make it fun. Take good care of your league bowlers. They still are your frequent flyers. We have a league benefit program. Our league bowlers get discounts on open play. They get discounts on food and beverage and certain special perks once in a while. But so do treat them well, and then really start thinking about, take a hard look at your inventory, take a hard look at your holes, and see where you've got some low-hanging fruit you can fill. Because we here Friday nights in the fall, high school football is a big thing, as it is in a lot of markets. And so our Friday nights were really not that busy. So I actually brought back casino bowling or Monte Carlo bowling, color pin bowling, which we used to do in the 70s and 80s. And nobody had ever heard of it here. Color pin bowling, you no tap, win money for getting a strike with colored pins. And so we started doing that on Fridays, and it's been a hugely popular thing. We limit it to 20 lanes because we don't want to take up the whole house with it, but we pretty much get 100 people every Friday night. Yeah. So do understand that there are old ideas that still can work and old programs that can work. So if you do have a hole, we had a hole on Friday nights, and I thought, well, maybe this will just be a temporary thing, but it has become a regular thing year round, and it's year round, and it's really been nice because it's kept the summer Friday nights in the summer pretty good too. So be really open-minded about opportunities that you might have. Really focus on the party side of the business. Look at your pricing, make sure you're charging enough, but also make sure you're giving enough value. And there's a lot of things you can do that are added value that do not cost anything. Bowling itself, you can do with time bowling, there's added value there. If you have pool or if you have arcade and you own your arcade, you can do some things like that. We give a $5 arcade card to every birthday child, and we call it priming the pump, so they can go to the arcade. And that $5 will cost in redemption process, what, maybe $1 most. So do things like that where you're giving added value. We do Groupon, but if you do a Groupon, a lot of people don't like doing Groupons because they feel like they're giving up too much.
Yeah.
Just don't, if you do a Groupon, just don't include anything that has a hard cost. So don't include food.
Yeah.
Do bowling, arcade, billiards. Our Groupon is 2 hours of bowling, shoes, 1 hour of pool, and a $10 arcade card or a $5 arcade card for each person, up to 6 people. So now we get 6 people come in and bowl. The average spend is $100, $130 that they spend on food and beverage and additional arcade. So think like that. Yeah. So as far as, where bowling's going, I think it's just, we've just got to stay on top of it and continue to give customer service. That is what we sell. Don't ever forget that we really cannot take any customer for granted, no matter how good business is right now. And capture customer information. That's always been important. It's a lot easier these days to capture information. If you have Wi-Fi in your building, you can capture emails just by having free Wi-Fi.
Yep.
And then through your website, all of the people that buy tickets to our events and things like that, we've got their information. That information is incredibly valuable to be able to communicate with people.
Yeah, gold.
Yeah, and I forget you had 3 questions in there.
So that was the first one. So the biggest challenge, what would that be currently?
I think, probably everybody would say staff right now, people.
Yeah.
And God, I have yet to come up with the solution for that. And it's just so frustrating because not only finding and getting people that want to work, but once you get the people, they still don't want to work. They just want a paycheck, and God forbid that you ask them to do anything. I don't know. And people talk about whatever generation we're in right now, whether it's Gen Z or millennials and things like that, and that they all have different perspectives and attitudes towards work and towards authority and stuff. And we do have to take that all into consideration, but it's just hard when in the end it's, come on, I'm paying you to do a job, do the damn job, and show up to work when you're supposed to. And it's, I don't know. It's
right.
That is clearly the biggest challenge.
Yeah. No, I'd say 9 out of 10 people have the same answer. That seems to be the big one today.
Yeah. And I definitely don't have the answer for it. If I did, geez, definitely be out there sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something that we've been working on because that's typically the biggest concern. And it's hard for us to convince people to do marketing if they don't have the staff to handle it. So we put in a couple of different things into place. I have a webinar, we can always link up, but there's definitely some solutions out there, a different approach.
Yeah. And I would say, I'm not sure if this falls into any of your questions, but use resources that are out there, like yourself, like your company and the things that you're doing. Use that, it's free. So take advantage of that resource. If you're not a BPA member, join BPA. There is no
brainer.
Yeah. And it's worth 10 times the dues. And the resources are phenomenal. And then things like restaurantowner.com. Jim Lobb spoke at Bowl Expo. I've subscribed to restaurantowner.com for 20 years. And there is no better resource that's a non-bowling resource, but all the things that they have available, and it's $15 a month or something.
Easy.
And there's just so much available. Webinars and manuals and worksheets and whatever you might need there. So take advantage of those kind of resources as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. The info's out there if someone's willing to consume it.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the last one that I usually like to go out with is your number one piece of advice for a proprietor. So maybe a newer proprietor, or someone who's ready at a turning point or ready to double down. What would be your top piece of advice for a proprietor?
I guess for any proprietor, whether old or new to the business, that it's a people business. It's your customers it's about your customers and it's about your employees, as difficult as those employees are these days, but it is a people business. And take care of the people, take care of your employees as best you can. Lead by example, teach them how to take care of a customer and just take good care of the customers. We know that I learned something when I was 16 years old in this business, and that was that There's only two things I think necessary to be successful in this business. And if we can deliver on these two things, we will be successful. And that is, people want to be treated special. All people want to be treated special. And when they walk through our doors, it's so nice in our business that when people walk through our doors, they're here to have a good time. It's not like you're going to an auto mechanic. It's not like you're going to a dentist. You're not going someplace where you do not want to be there, and you're going to have to spend money that you don't want to spend. You're coming here to have a good time. So people want to be treated special. Let's make sure that we do that. Secondly, people want to have fun. And that's the only reason that they're here, is to have fun. So treat people special, make sure they have fun, and we'll be successful.
Yeah, I love that. I can't think of a better one to finish up with. For Paul, for anyone who wants to reach out or is curious about consulting or whatever else you're doing, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
I guess probably email. It's really simple. It's paul@victorylanes.com.
Okay. Yeah, that's how I got in touch with you. But yeah, thanks again for coming on. Like I said, I could talk to you all day about this stuff. Maybe we'll have to do another one down the road, but I really appreciate it. And this has been a pleasure.
Likewise, I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you. And I, again, appreciate the work you're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.